Okay, practitioners, hold on to your hats because we have a pretty bomb.com kind of lady with us today. Please welcome Morgan Sinclair to our show.
Hello, it's so good to be here. I love it. It's so much easier to do this one-on-one than with a large group of people like trying to raise their hand.
Oh, it totally is. So for some background, I met Morgan when we did kind of this roundtable with Jennifer McGurk, Pursuing Private Practice podcast. And I was like, oh, I got to get to know her even more. And I'm just absolutely floored by this fabulous human. And so, Morgan, I would love for you to share your story with our listeners of like how you ended up here.
Yes, I would love to dive into it. So I am an eating disorder dietitian by trade, but currently run a design and marketing studio for weight-inclusive business owners, amongst many other things that have stemmed from that. But before I became an eating disorder dietitian, I got my degree in nutrition. Kind of a condensed version is really was skeptical if I wanted to be a dietitian or not. Unfortunately, didn't find that out until my senior year of college.
Oh, no.
It was a little too late to change majors at that point. And so I ended up pursuing and getting my Master's of Science in Business.
Interesting.
Yeah. They marketed it as a MBA program for STEM majors. So the whole purpose was to go learn about the business side of things, but eventually return back to what your undergrad was in. And so the concept of it was really cool. It was an 11-month master's program. So I was like, sign me up. Let's do this. But in between graduating from undergrad and going in and getting my master's, I needed a job for a semester. I just had like a semester gap. And I ended up getting connected with a medical practice that specializes in eating disorders here in my hometown of Houston. And that was my first intro into the eating disorder space.
Oh my gosh, how interesting.
Yeah. So learning all of the medical stuff before the nutrition stuff was fascinating. I will say I thought about going to PA school for a little bit after that.
Of course.
I know. I was so fascinated by it. Like, you just can't argue with lab values. And so it was so fun to have that like definitive proof of what's happening in your body. So worked there, did my master's, decided to do my internship because I had already gone to school. So I might as well get some letters after my name. But still really didn't know what I wanted to do. During my internship, I started dabbling in building websites for people. It was just something that I was interested in. I had developed an e-portfolio for myself in college and just really enjoyed it. And so started dabbling in that. Kind of had, I don't want to call it a quarter life crisis because it was kind of a moment of inspiration. I ended up moving to Italy for a little bit.
Shut the front door. Are you serious?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those, like, I don't want to be a dietitian, but I don't know what I want to do. So I'm never going to have an opportunity to like leave the country for a few months. And so let me just, go big or go home.
Where did you go? What'd you eat? Oh my God, I need to know it all.
Oh yeah. So I lived in a coastal town called Genoa. It is the 6th largest city in Italy. And so I assumed it would be a great spot for someone who doesn't speak Italian to go. Was humbled when I got there of how much I probably should have learned Italian. Not a very big tourist city. And so most of my days were just spent going to coffee shops and building out kind of this first prototype of what my design studio was going to be.
How cool. Oh, what a great life experience.
It was cool. It was one of the hardest moments of my life. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but I am social. I like being around people. I went an hour and a half away for college. So I've always been close to family and friends. Like, you could always find someone to go do something with. And so being in a space where I knew no one was pretty rough. I called my mom almost every day the first month I was there. And I was like, I want to come home. I want to come home. I want to come home. And she's like, Morgan, stick it out. It's going to be worth it. And I was like, thank you for encouraging me. But also, this is so hard.
Oh, no. So after your stint in Italy, what happened next?
Yes. So came home, reconnected with a few people I had met in the Houston community, and they were both working at a treatment center. Both those levels of care had part-time job openings. And so I kind of smushed those together and made myself a little full-time job. And honestly, that's what changed everything, because being in that space allowed me to connect with so many other eating disorder clinicians. And I was still doing some design work on the side. And I kept hearing over and over again, I can't find a web designer who, when I tell them I'm a dietitian, won't put triggering images on my website.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know what you do. I know your lingo. Like, I know how the process works. I also design websites. Let me help you. And it was that year that I decided to niche down to only work with eating disorder, weight inclusive business owners.
Oh my gosh. So since you was like, okay, I found my home base, I found what I wanted to do. How has it been?
It just keeps growing, which is so exciting. It was, yeah, I mean, it's just like steadily grown every year. It's allowed me to connect with people like all across the world, which has just been it's like all the warm and fuzzies of getting to meet people and be connected. My kind of zone of genius is networking and connecting with people. And so being able to do that and connect with people has been a lot of fun. And it's shifted and evolved. And so obviously working one-on-one with someone to build a brand and website is a little bit more of a high ticket item. And so it's allowed me to create free content. It's allowed me to start a podcast with Hannah Turnbull. It's allowed me to build out, or what I'm currently building out right now is the Weight Inclusive Business Academy, which is all of the information that I would normally do in like one-on-one coaching in bite-sized chunks that people can take along their journey of being an entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. So is that live, the Weight Inclusive Business Academy?
Technically, yes. I have rearranged some things, so I'm going back and editing it. There are a few courses. I say courses. This is one piece is I want to change it to either like module or lesson, because it's 15 minutes of education and 15 minutes of action item per lesson. So it's truly is like bite-sized chunks of information. So yeah, it's all mapped out. I have all the courses mapped out. I just need to like sit down and record them now.
Oh, got it. Well, keep us posted because that's amazing. Okay. So you're out there helping all of these providers. What is one of the biggest like mistakes, or you're like, oh, you need to be doing this? Like, oh, we got to fix this. Like, what is something that you notice across the board that providers just aren't really crushing it yet?
Yeah. The biggest thing, and this is also feedback that I've gotten from people I've worked with, that's kind of like this aha moment, is if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one. And so it's this idea that you really need to hone in on who you want to work with. And, you know, in the first few years of being a clinician, it makes sense that you're going to want to be exposed to a lot of different people, diagnoses, all of that. And I think that's needed in order to figure out who you actually want to work with. But if you're 2-3+ years of doing this, you probably have a pretty good idea of the types of people you like to see and the types of people you don't like to see. Yes. And there's a lot of power in honing in on who those people are, because whenever you know who's on that other side of the screen, reading your website, looking at social media, engaging with your marketing material, and you know exactly what their pain points are in their language, you can speak so clear to them that they're going to be like nodding their head as they're scrolling down your page.
How do you get to that point where you have like somebody reading your page, reading your social, and they're just like, yes, this person gets me? Like, how do you, like, I feel like it takes a while. So how do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think just exploring so many different pieces and being so curious about what types of clients you really enjoy showing up for. I think it can be hard because as eating disorder clinicians, we just want to help everyone. Like, that's just in our nature. That's why we do this work. But on the business side of things, like, there's those clients that you have in the back of your mind where you're like, you're really struggling right now, but I'm still so excited to show up to session with you. And so even when you get that excitement of working with those clients, even if they're struggling, going through something hard, it's going to be a little more work on our end. Kind of choosing, I always suggest people choosing like 3 to 5 clients that they've just loved working with regardless, and kind of like blending them all together and pulling the pieces of what they really liked about it.
Interesting. Okay. So I have a very like, I don't know how to word this, but it's like, it might be kind of a juxtaposition of a client. So as you were saying that, I was thinking about my clients in my head, And some of my favorite clients came in because they wanted to lose weight. And if we're coming in as a weight inclusive provider, like how do you kind of meet the patient where they are? So I have a funny joke that no matter what patient I see, from a very, very, very sick person that is needing a higher level of care to somebody that's almost, hopefully almost in recovery, they have all started with, I want to lose weight. And I'm like, so how do you begin that journey and have that conversation, be true to yourself as a provider, but yet meet the patient where they are? I feel like it's such a philosophical question that I don't even know.
Yeah. So I would say, like, in terms of writing copy or like marketing material, you never want to offer something that you're not going to support. And so I never recommend putting weight loss on the website if that's never something. But there's this common denominator. It's like this perfect blend, common denominator, I guess is the right word, of the underlying piece that the client is experiencing: lack of control around food, managing body image concerns, shopping for clothes. And we know as clinicians who've done this work long enough that we can kind of hone in on what that is without saying weight loss. And so we can tap into those pain points. Those I like to categorize them as external pain points. So like fitting into clothes, like those external pieces, those internal pain points, which is their beliefs about themselves and their beliefs about food, and then philosophical pain points, which is the statements of like, well, I really should, like the shoulds. Like, I really should be doing this. I really shouldn't be doing this. I ought to be doing this. Things like that. And so when we can kind of separate or like categorize those, I'm sure we can all think of phrases that our clients have said that fit into that tap into what's really going on with the desire to lose weight without saying weight loss.
Interesting. I love that idea, because I'm thinking of like my very like restrictor clients that are coming in and they're like, well, I mean, I'm just doing this to like appease so-and-so, and then I'm going to lose weight again. I'm like, no. And so it's very, when you're getting into that mindset of like those restrictors or those types of things, I think it's one of those pain points of like external, internal. That's a great way of looking at it. Ooh, I'm like,
and so now, because people are like, well, I don't really know what they say. And so now over the next week or two, as you're having sessions, you can kind of start keeping tabs on what your clients are saying, and see if there's like a common theme that they're talking about, and being able to put phrasing like that on your website in social media captions to really capture that.
So, okay, we're just going to go down this road because I'm curious.
Yeah.
So some of them are really painful pain points. And so I'm thinking of like a very specific one where they're like, oh, I don't eat because I'm not good enough. And so like some of them are just like gut wrenching hard, and it's that space to hold for the patient, and that's their journey they're walking on. How can you turn that into a social media post, to part of your brand that is just pure, like it truly is a pain point. And I'm just like, I'm thinking of patients and it just is like gut wrenching.
Yeah. I mean, my like creative brain is like going, I almost envision a graphic of like a text message bubble that they're sending. It's like one of those blue bubbles. Yep. And it says, gosh, I'm just not good enough, to be able to have that like graphic. And then in the caption, you can talk about that of like, so often we hear like, we're not good enough. What does this really mean? Getting to dive into that, that like education around it, or like ways to challenge it. It could be like I hate these posts, but I'm kind of want to reclaim the power of this. So like, well, like they had like the eat this, not this, or eat this instead of this. You could almost do that with that quote of like, instead of saying I'm not good enough, think of it this way instead. And so being able, I think the most important piece is to recognize that that's a natural thought that comes up, because we don't want to shy away from that. It's true. It's authentic. And pull some DBT in here, the yes and.
Yes.
And we can also offer them skills, whether that's on a website or on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever platform you're using, to start to reframe that.
I'm so glad you said TikTok because I'm thank you for this. And I need to jump ship to TikTok because
I love TikTok. Oh my gosh, I love TikTok.
Okay. Help my old lady brain come up with it because, one, I love it too, but I feel like it's rotting my brain. And two, how can we use it? Because it is so like out of left field as far as like marketing from like the crazy algorithms of Facebook. So tell us, oh wise one.
So here's my general rule of thumb with social media, because more times than not, if I'm doing coaching with someone, I hear, I want to get better at doing Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media. And the first question I always ask them is, love that. I love social media. What's your goal? What are you wanting to get out of doing social media? And so often I hear, well, I want more clients, or I want clients to be able to find me. And this is going to be a little bit of a hot take. You're not going to find clients from social media until you reach like a few thousand followers.
Oh my God, Morgan, you're like my new best friend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Amen. Amen. Because I think
think about it. You're a clinician. You have what, maybe 30 hours in your week that you can, so 30 clients a week max. Like that's a lot of clients even. You really don't need, like you need to nurture your referral sources more. And I will say, I'll put a little asterisk on here. If you're wanting to sell a course, a membership, something that you can kind of reach the masses where you're not restricted by licensure, by state, then you can pursue social media as a legit marketing tool. If you like social media because you like social media, I'm over here like raising my hand because I just love it. I love consuming it. I love creating. It just taps into a different part of my brain. Then still use it, but it doesn't have to be a full-fledged marketing strategy for you and your business.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I think I've been saying that forever. And I was like, am I saying the wrong things? But thank you so much for me. But like also
same brainwave. Yes. Yes.
Ah, good. Good. Okay. So if somebody was like, okay, I'm going to do this course thingamabobber and all of that, where should they even should they be spending their time on TikTok? So like, what are your thoughts? Because TikTok feels to me newer and more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very fun. In my personal opinion. So I think it kind of goes back to who that ideal client is, right? Because I would say TikTok is a platform where you're essentially kind of reaching the masses. And so if you're offering something that is more general, like college students wanting to learn about intuitive eating, there's a lot of college students on TikTok that you could probably reach. And there's an opportunity, if you make a really good TikTok, it goes viral, you can gain some traction that way. But if you're wanting to work with like moms who used to be dancers or something like that, like something way specific, like the chances of finding moms who used to be dancers on TikTok, while it's great to have that niche, probably not the best place to have like a primary marketing strategy.
Yeah, I like it. So if we were going to kind of follow your amazing recommendations of like nurturing referrals, how do we incorporate websites and branding and really make that flow?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is consistency. And this pulls in the branding piece for sure. Having fonts and colors that are consistent across anything that your brand touches, your brand and your business touches. And the reason for that is it's kind of antiquated. I'm not a huge fan of it from its like true meaning. There's the know, like, trust factor, which is a marketing piece or marketing strategy to kind of dive into. And it feels a little gamey sometimes, and I don't love that aspect of it. But I think in terms of knowing you, having that consistency, they're already going to start to like you because you're already proving that you can show up in a consistent way. And even having all of that consistency with your branding psychologically allows us to trust you. So if you have like this Instagram that's like pink and floral and whatever, and they show up on your website and it's like black and moody, and like, they're going to be like, am I on the right website? Is this the same person? Why does this look so different? How can I trust that they're going to show up consistently for clients if they can't even show up consistently online?
Interesting. That's a great perspective. So I guess as far as like branding and consistency and kind of like showing up, is there something that we need to be thinking about and being more mindful of, like how we send over notes, or like where does branding need to actually be when we're communicating with referral providers?
Short answer, branding should be incorporated into everything.
Everywhere, always.
Everywhere. I mean, even down to like, is your business name in your email address?
Yeah.
Or is your email signature linking to your website? Like, even just those little connections. It's a process.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's something that you're never, like, when you're just getting started, like, don't put pressure on yourself. Literally, like, pick 2 fonts, pick 2 or 3 colors, stick with them, keep it simple. Consistency is better than this like big elaborate brand strategy, whatever. But as you continue to learn and grow and step into that role of entrepreneurship, there is opportunity for you to get really specific. And it's something as simple as, do you consider yourself a non-diet dietitian or an anti-diet dietitian? Are you using, if you choose non-diet, is that what your Instagram bio says? Is that what your bio on your website says? Like, is that being consistent in all those places? And it feels nitty gritty, but it does. It really makes a difference of showing up in a consistent way.
I love that. And I guess, so I am not the detail-oriented person at all. I'm like, cool, did it once, don't have to look at it again. So what is your recommendations as far as like, if you were to like, man, I haven't looked at my website content in probably like 15 years. And like probably 95% of it is not accurate anymore. How often should we be going back through and scrubbing stuff?
I think a general good rule of thumb is just getting eyes on it at least once a year. Yeah. If you ever take dietetic interns, it's a really fun project to give them because they're learning about phrasing of things, marketing, what that looks like. And I always have my dietetic interns give me feedback on where I can improve in one piece of my business, because one thing that I feel like we don't get enough training in is how to give feedback, especially when you know that the person on the other end is a safe space to be able to like role play. And so I love having them do tasks like that.
Oh, I love that task for interns, because sometimes you forget, like, what the heck am I going to do with an intern this time? That's a really good one. Okay, so we talked about kind of like branding, and are you seeing any trends in branding right now as far as like in the weight inclusive space of like, is it more pastels? Is it more like flowiness? Are we being more bold? Like, what have you noticed, and where should we kind of think about as far as what we're doing?
Yeah, I will say the trend that I'm seeing is people not being afraid to show up as their authentic self, which I have been loving. And your logos is meant to be a combination of you as the provider and your personality blended with who this ideal client is. Like, both of y'all should be attracted to this logo.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so I the shifts that I've seen is, and if you have one of these logos, I promise I'm not calling you out. I'm just calling out trends that I've seen. Is shifting from this like pastel watercolor cursive. I feel like we saw that everywhere, and we're moving more into a space that's more kind of like clean lines, but also still being able to have that individual, like some people are doing pastels still, and some people are doing more bold colors. Some people are still adding cursive, but it's just like, it looks different than it did from like the 2013 Pinterest boards that we all had.
Yes. Like, everybody's like, oh, the first font on Canva, we have now scrolled down.
Yes. Thank you, Canva, for adding more fonts.
Yes. I love it. So I guess kind of as far as like newer clinicians that are getting their practices going, or ones that have been doing it for 2-3 years, where are things that we can kind of start to tap in as far as like next steps, as far as our branding, our marketing? Where would you say is a next step for somebody?
Yeah, I would say in the first few years of business, like DIY it. Don't spend money on paying someone, because you're still figuring out your rhythm. You're still figuring out the systems you want to put in place, the type of vibe you want to have, the type of clinician you want to be. But really elevating your brand and your website is hiring someone to do it. And there can be different aspects of it. You can hire someone to do everything that does the branding, the web design, turning that into Instagram templates. Like there's this whole array of things. Or you can just hire someone to like get that really solid brand and then keep your DIY website. At least it'll be consistent.
Nice.
One of my favorite recommendations to make, regardless of what stage you're in, is get some brand photos done.
What is that?
Yeah. So brand photos are just images that you can use across anything that your brand and business touches. So whether it's Instagram, your website, marketing materials, sending over headshots to someone, doing presentations, things like that. And so I usually recommend having like 1 or 2 true headshots of you like smiling at the camera. And then the rest should be a combination of what I like to say, like you in action. So like you sipping on your morning coffee, you reading one of your favorite eating disorder books, and then also some stock images, which we see as like the overlays of like the typing on the laptop with the book open next to you or things like that. But the beauty of having your own images is they're all going to look the same because they're all taken and edited by the same photographer.
And like, how do you find those humans as far as like photographers? How do you like, is it expensive? Like I always think of photography as like so expensive.
There's different ranges depending on the photographer.
Yeah.
My favorite way to find brand photographers is word of mouth. If there's someone else in your area that has really cool pictures on their website, asking them who their photographer was. Also going to Instagram and searching like brand photographer Austin, brand photographer Houston, brand photographer in whatever location you're in.
That's brilliant.
Price wise, I mean, to give a ballpark, probably anywhere between $200 and $500.
Okay. I was thinking like thousands of dollars.
Definitely not thousands of dollars.
Okay. That makes me feel like, okay, that's like digestible for like somebody that's like, okay, we're past the DIY stage. We can like start to like kind of be some coolness. So how much time should we be spending on social media and all of this stuff if that's not really our jam?
If it's not your jam, don't do it.
Oh, thank you for that permission. Oh, I think everybody just like had a big sigh of relief.
Okay. Probably sigh of relief followed by, but everyone else is doing it. So is that really true?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the concept of being able to work and flow. If you have a really good session, you're like, oh, I wish more people knew about this. Put together an Instagram graphic and throw it on there. If you don't want it to be a main part of your marketing strategy, then just use it for fun and post when it feels fun.
I like that. I like having that ability of like, it's not going to make a huge difference. Just post when it's fun. Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
Morgan,
so many other things for us to think about as clinicians that if you don't enjoy social media, then like, don't use it as a marketing strategy.
That just like is, I'm sure a lot of us are like, oh, thank you. Thank you. So Morgan, how can, like, I always like to ask our guests, like, what's something that we could be doing today to move our business forward and to really help us grow our private practices?
Oh, that's a big question. Let me think. What's the one thing that I want to leave y'all with? I would say specifically with private practices, get 3 meetings with practitioners in your area with referral sources and take them out to coffee, get to know them, build those relationships. The world's starting to open up again. Those are going to really be the people that move the needle in your business.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. 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 A million times, 100% agree. Yes. It's, get to know your people, make your community.
People. We can't do this without community. We collaborate too much. Yeah, you have to know people in your area.
Morgan, this has been way too much fun. How can we continue to learn from you? Where are you at?
Yes. So as I alluded, I love Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram at Morgan Sinclair, just my first and last name. In my bio is links to the other things that I've got going on. So like I mentioned, I co-host a podcast. I am hosting a food-focused trip to Italy in September.
No.
So more information if you want to go. It's called the Eating Expedition.
Oh my gosh. How fun. That's
yes, I'm beyond excited. It was supposed to happen October of 2020. Obviously didn't happen. There's still some spots available. So if anyone listening is interested in doing a food focused tour of Northern Italy, let me know. But yeah, Instagram's the best place. And then if you're interested in doing any sort of branding, web design work together, Morgan Sinclair Designs is the name of my business.
Oh, we will definitely have all of that in our show notes. Morgan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This has been, I mean, for me personally, I'm like, I've learned so much, but thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.